A very good afternoon, everyone. It's a bright and sunny Sunday morning here in Bangalore, and welcome to the Startup Operators Weekly Roundup. My name is Gunjan Saha, and joining me today we have Roshan Karyapa to take you through the latest and the greatest news from the startup ecosystem in India. Hi, Roshan. Good afternoon. How has the week been for you?
Gunjan, first decide if it's morning or afternoon, man. Huh? So, good afternoon, Bolke. You're saying that it's a bright and sunny morning, but I guess that's the Sunday feeling, right?
That's the
So,
Sunday feeling.
yeah, yeah. No, it's a pretty nice time here, and nothing to complain really, right? Given everything that's happening around, I think you have to be grateful for everything. I was also especially feeling very nostalgic. I'm going to be completing 13 years in startups next month,
Wow.
and what a ride it's been. Started out in 2008, and 2008 was a very, very different time. It looked nothing like this, right? The Lehman Brothers crash had happened, and it was total chaos. Actually, I mean, there are some things that look familiar, obviously, right? Given that we're in a bit of a crisis now as well, but startups were nothing like this, right? I think I mentioned this earlier, that founders are just so much more confident. The ecosystem is so much more mature, and you can see that, right? I mean, with ESOP buybacks happening, with the likes of Tata investing in Big Basket, the funding news coming in almost on a weekly basis, or week to 10 days basis. You're getting a unicorn getting minted, right? And the salaries, the optimism, it's just fantastic. And I really think, we have ringside view of one of the greatest spectacles that is taking place. We look back maybe 10, 20 years from now and think of all of these things, right? I mean, whether it's the SaaS wave that we're on, or the Build for Bharat movement, so on and so forth, and probably speak about it like how generations that speak about the liberalization, right? And in 1991, how they speak about it. I mean, I think we'll speak about the startups, and you'll see over the next 10 years that we'll skip a lot of the institutions that are required for our progress, and directly go to innovation, right? And all of this jugaad will happen through startups, and it will happen irrespective of governments, right? You're seeing the convergence of so many different technologies, so many different trends, and this whole Web 3.0 blockchain crypto sort of thing will just accelerate that even further, I feel. Yeah.
Right. So, but I mean, since we'll be completing 13 years, let's talk about the greatest innovations that has been happening over the past week, right? We have some large check fundraisers from companies like Zeta and Plum in the financial services industry. We have a Series E funding round, which is solving for last mile delivery efficiencies. And of course, it's been the buzz throughout the week, right? The whole Twitter scene, we'll be talking about that. And of course, as even though as you're working from home, we have a great fundraiser that happened during the week, which is solving for workplace productivity. So without further ado, let's get started with this week's roundup. Banking tech startup Zeta becomes India's latest unicorn after raising $250 million dollars in Series C. The round was led by SoftBank's Vision 2 at a valuation of $1.45 billion. Dollars. And I'll stress on this, it is almost 5x of its previous valuation of 300 million during its previous round in 2019. So Dexo, which is a French headquartered food services company, also participated as an additional minority investor in the round. For those who do not know Zeta, Zeta provides banks with technology to create digital products that enhance user experience and significantly reduce time to market. Its near-term focus will be on hiring fresh employees and completing product updates. Bhavin Turakia, who is Zeta's co-founder and CEO, even commented that it may look at a public listing eventually. Today, Zeta works with over 25 fintech firms and 10 banks, which also includes India's largest private bank, HDFC, among others. Roshan, I think we spoke about Zeta some time back. Could you help summarize their evolution and talk about why this fundraiser is important for them?
Sure. So Zeta, of course, pivoted from employee benefits to embedded finance that you just mentioned, right? And they merged their business with Sodexo. It's run by the Turakia brothers, who are quite famous. I mean, Bhavin and Divyank have built and sold many multiple businesses. Most famously, I think they sold MediaNet for something like $900 million, right? One of the largest exits in ad tech. They've also sold BigRock for 160 million. That was in the hosting and domains space. So they've really been there and done that, and their parent company DirectEye has things like Flock and Flock, which is a Slack equivalent, Ringo, which is like a cloud telephony sort of a startup, and so on, right? So they're running multiple different businesses, and embedded finance. I think we've referenced it more than a couple of times. There's this article by a partner at Anderson Horowitz, Angela Strange, and she's written about how every company will be a fintech company, and key to that is this enabling of loan processing products or credit or debit and things to that effect, all the technology required for that, right? So simply build things out in a modular fashion and being able to build this out without any banking domain experience as such, right? And that is really what Zeta is enabling for some of the banks and fintechs as such, right? So you can just layer on top of your core banking solution and build a nice front end, right? They have I think, couple of modes. I mean, they have some APIs as well as some white labeled SDKs, app SDKs that they offer, and they have a whole bunch of program management consulting services around it, right? Interestingly, this is a bet from SoftBank, and which is why, I mean, you see the 5x sort of valuation, and when you do $37 billion in net profit for the quarter, I guess you can do all these things, right? So SoftBank has had it good with DoorDash, Coupang, IPOs that happened, and then Grab going the SPAC route, right? And also, I mean, they're going to have an interesting year ahead. I mean, with IPOs of Policy Bazaar, Delivery, Paytm in the works, and some of the big players like Inmobi and Ola Electric, and I don't know if they've already invested in Swiggy. There was some talk about them investing about 450 million in Swiggy. So yeah, I mean, a lot of interesting bets, in the works, and that will hopefully play out. So yeah, this is fantastic news.
Right. Okay. Also, I think the entire week was abuzz with India's new social media laws. But amidst that, India's Twitter alternate Coup has raised $30 million in its Series B funding, which was led by Tiger Global. Apart from Tiger Global, this round also saw investments from existing investors, Callery Capital, 314 Capital, Axel Partners, Bloom Ventures, and Dream Incubator, while IIFL and Mirai Assets joined the round as new investors. With this fundraise, they'll be primarily focusing on strengthening its engineering, product, and community efforts across all Indian languages at Coup. Coup aims to build a social network for the entire nation, catering to its diverse set of languages, while Twitter remains largely popular among the English-speaking crowds in urban areas. But with over 60 lakh users on its platform, Coup is being classified as a major social media intermediary, which has to comply with the new IT intermediary guidelines. Now, under these new rules, large social media platforms such as Facebook, Twitter, and even Coup will be held accountable and responsible for the content that is hosted by them. So, Roshan, can you help us understand as to like why are investors betting on a platform like Coup, and do you think India needs more such indigenous social media platforms?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you look at the way some of these international platforms, I won't even call them international, right? I'll call them American social platforms have behaved, whether it's Facebook or Twitter more egregiously, right? Given everything that's happened over the last week, where they've just said we'll refuse to comply with your guidelines. I mean, it's more than necessary now to build our own platforms, right? And things like Coup and Chingari and the others, ShareChat and so on, are very, very essential, I would say, right? And also because before that, I mean, I also want to make the point of, growth stage funds coming in very early, right? And so the early stage guys must be feeling the squeeze in that sense, because Tiger coming in at a Series A, Series B is like crazy, right? And that too, the check size of 30 million, right? Uh, Coup is a hedge on all of the international guys, Facebook, Twitter, because they're bound to do something stupid sooner than later and get banned, right? It's also a bet on the whole vernacular Bharat wave as well, right? There's still a whole lot of users in India that are due to come onto these platforms and really engage with these platforms. Facebook has about 300 million users. Twitter has about 17.5 million users, and Koo is, as you mentioned, 6 million users, right? Which is, I mean, it's gaining very fast.
Yeah.
Last time I think we spoke, they were up at about the 3 or 4 million mark, and now they're at 6, right? So yeah, and I think you've seen some of the government handles and departments and so on and so forth get onto Koo as well. So there's some sort of a patronage, or if not patronage, some sort of a support as well, implicit support in some of this stuff. It's definitely important, and more power to the team. I hope we build out our local social networks so that we don't really have to rely on all of these international entities which act like supranational entities actually.
And also, it's interesting to note that this is the second fundraise in 2 years. I mean, the company was started in 2020, and halfway into 2021, they have its Series B fundraise. So yeah, more power to the team. All right, so a news from probably the poster startup of the Indian startup ecosystem. Zerodha announced that it'll be buying back shares from its early employees at a valuation of around $2 billion. Now, the company's valuation has almost doubled in span of just 1 year, given the massive bull run in the Indian stock markets. It plans to buy back ESOPs worth about $25 million, which is close to 200 crores in later this year in months of July and August. With this ESOP buyback scheme, almost 900 out of its total 1,000 employees will be benefiting from it. This is the second ESOP buyback Zerodha will conduct after it bought back shares worth 60 to 65 crores in November last year, something which I had covered in our roundup as well. Interesting to note here is that Zerodha is one of the very few tech startups to have not raised any venture capital money while getting to such a high valuation. Even Nitin Kamath, who is the co-founder and CEO of Zerodha, also mentioned that the company's valuation is very conservative, considering its direct linkage to the Indian stock market's performance. What are your thoughts on this?
No, this is pretty amazing. I mean, if you look at the new businesses, stockbroking businesses like Zerodha, Grow, and Upstocks, they have completely displaced the traditional stockbroking guys, right? Like ICICI, HDFC, Kotak Securities, and so on. Even Sher Khan, which came in later, and Motilal Oswal, Angel Broking, and so on, right? So, and there is so much of headroom to play. I mean, the last figure that I read was 3.7%, right? 3.7% of Indians invest in the stock market and mutual funds and some sort of those instruments. This number, I mean, I think probably last year it was around 2.5 or something, if I remember correct. So there's plenty of headroom for growth. Just for perspective, around 12-13% of China's population invests in market. In America, it's 55%, right? So there's a lot of room for growth. And financial year 20 was a fantastic time for the markets as such, right? I mean, we saw that 4.9 million demat accounts were opened in FY20, and 1.3 million in September alone, right? So the total demat accounts are around the 40 million mark right now. And in terms of the valuation itself, Grow is $1 billion. They've raised about 140 million. Upstocks is I mean, they've raised relatively less. They've raised about $30 million. And there's a lot of interest from the growth funds in terms of investing in these guys, right? And Zerodha has followed like a different path altogether, I would say. They've been profitable. They're bootstrapped, as you mentioned, and this is pretty amazing, man. I mean, Nitin Kamath put out a thread, I think it was today, very kind of likened all of this to taking out liquidity when you're up, which is like a very investor thing to do, right? I mean, it's the right thing to do, I feel. And their profits after tax is like 1,000 crores. And, I think 200 crores is what they've budgeted for all of these ESOP buybacks and everything. Really, really good. I mean, it just shows a lot more trust in your business. It shows a lot more staying power. And for me, as a consumer of Zerodha, as a user of Zerodha, I mean, I really get more confident, right? Because this is a bet on their future, and the founders showing that they are really vested in it for the long run. I'm reminded of this Silicon Valley series line, right, which says revenue kills valuation, but I mean, not so much in this case. I mean, more power to the Zerodha team. So Seriously, amazing work, and I think it's one of those really enviable stories. The kind of stories that people should look up to, I feel. Yeah.
Right. Also, I think in the roundup, on an average, we're covering two fundraisers led by Tiger Global. Enterprise-focused group insurance platform Plum Insurance recently reached $15.7 million in its latest fundraise. Tiger Global has spearheaded the Series A round with $10 million, followed by Tanglin Ventures, Surge Venture, and IF India, who have invested 2 million, 1.6 million, and $1.5 million respectively. Angel List, Meyer Keith Ventures, and angels including Kunal Shah, Maninder Gulati, Ashish Tulsian, Gaurav Munjal, Roman Saini, Hamish Singh, among others, have also pumped in the remaining amount. Launched in early 2020 by Abhishek Poddar and Saurabh Arora, Plum provides group insurance facilities to startups and SMEs. The company also provides health benefits, including doctor consultations, health checkups, fitness and yoga, mental wellness, nutrition, and dental care. They have also been working with many early to growth stage startups, including FamPay, Grow, Class Plus, Small Case, Twilio, InstaWork, Posit, TapChief, and File, and among many others. Now, this, as you mentioned, is another instance of growth stage funds coming in early, right? Uh,
Yeah. No, absolutely, and I think all of these are like bets on the India story, right? And bets on the sectors itself, where I think these guys are looking at some startups with some early signs of success and then doubling down, right? And Plum has done really well, actually. And if you look at the insurance space itself, 44% of Indians have some sort of health insurance, and mostly these are through firm employment benefits and so on, right? And as the economy formalizes, I think you're going to see this increase more and more, right? And the other thing is also this social schemes like Ayushman Bharat, Jan Arogya Yojana, and so on, right? I mean, I think more people will start accessing these schemes and accessing insurance and so on. And this is key to preventing out-of-pocket expenses. One of the major causes of financial strife is health expenses, right? And this is especially beneficial for low-income households. And given the number of employees that startups will employ will go up, right? This is going to be super useful. Plum itself is a new age broker type of a business. We have sat through insurance sessions, and it's just like the traditional conventional insurance business is just a nightmare, right? There's so much of information asymmetry, so many terms and policies and so on and so forth. Right? It's just such an opaque process, and insurance is one such business where it's not in the interest of the insurer that you get benefited from it. That they have to pay out the claims and so on, right? So it's shrouded in a lot of opacity, I would say, right? And a lot of mystery around things. So what Plum is doing is solving it through like an online experience, and they have a nice dashboard to track claims and so on and so forth. Claims is another thing which is like such a hassle, right? I mean, and typically these are times when you are really not in the best frame of mind. I mean, either you or God forbid someone in your family is ill, and you really have to get these things in order. Anything to improve that experience is a godsend, right? And startups like Plum, and we've spoken about Bima Pay as well, Rahul Mathur and Bima Pay. These are critical, I feel, in lending that visibility, clarity to people, and making sure it's a hassle-free experience, right? So this space is like really interesting, and it look very different in the years to come. The interesting thing also is Plum is a search startup, right? So that's another win for Sequoia, I would say. I think they're probably in their fifth or sixth cohort year. And Atlan is a search startup as well, which we're going to talk about soon. So yeah, I mean, phenomenal work from Sequoia.
right. Next up, we have Farai, who is a SaaS startup catering to the Indian logistics services. Recently raised a $100 million round, which was co-led by high-profile backers like TCV and Dragoneer Investment Group. Existing investors, H Road Ventures, Fundamentum, Honeywell also participated in the round. And with this latest fundraise, the 7.5-year-old startup has raised a total of $153 million. Now, Farai helps companies orchestrate, track, and optimize their logistics operations. Its flagship logistics management software supports the entire supply chain, from first mile seller pickups to last mile delivery. Now, I have a pretty interesting example that I came across while researching on how Farai actually works. Say you order a pizza from Domino's, the company will use Farai service, which integrates into the system it is using, to quickly inform you how long they need to wait for the food to reach them. Now, behind the scenes, what's happening is Farai is helping Domino's evaluate a number of moving pieces. How many delivery people are there in the vicinity? Can it bundle a few orders by a single delivery person? What is the maximum number of items one can carry? How experienced is the delivery person? What's the best route to reach the customer? And would the restaurant need the same number of delivery people the following day? A lot of variables in the works, right? And the success which Farai has seen has also been pretty great. Today, it works with over 150 e-commerce and delivery companies globally and includes popular names such as Walmart, UPS, DHL, Poshti, Gordon Foods, Amway, and of course Domino's. Uh, on an average, it processes close to 100 million transactions a month. So, Roshan, with so much details, have you ever thought like what actually goes on behind the scenes when you order a pizza, let's say?
No, I mean, props to people who manage things on the back end, man. I mean, it's so difficult. There are so many moving parts, as you mentioned, so many different things that have to really come together. And as customers, we're spoiled, right? I mean, let's say the Swiggy delivery is delayed by about 10 or 15 minutes, and you start pacing the room, thinking, where the hell is this guy, right? And one thing that I have been on the other end of things, and so I'm very, very cognizant of the fact that plenty of things have to come together. It's a very complex thing, so people should have patience. And looks like Farai is solving a very, very relevant problem, right? I mean, which is the whole backend optimizing things and providing that visibility and improving productivity. Yeah, I mean, logistics is of course, I mean, one of the key sectors that you can operate in, and it's really horizontal, right? I mean, it's prevalent everywhere. So
Right.
these guys are solving across retail, manufacturing, and so on. And it's amazing to note how much of this is like getting SaaSified, right? I mean, we keep talking about different sorts of businesses, and all of them are getting SaaSified. Of course, with cloud adoption increasing, and with the payment infrastructure that we have, so on and so forth. Last mile logistics, and the two at the scale that they're doing, where they're supporting 100 million transactions, um, is simply amazing. So great news, and more power to the team.
Right. So I'll just would like to add one more comment, Roshan, to what you just mentioned. Just look at how predictable last mile logistics has become, right? I mean, Domino's guarantees your pizza delivery within 30 minutes or less, otherwise you'll get it for free. Recently, Zomato also started its on-time delivery of free, right? Unless the partner reaches within 50 meters of your location. So the amount of predictability companies like Farai has brought in to last mile delivery has been great. And yeah, of course, a lot of more innovations to look forward to in the coming months. Next up, we have a tool that is revolutionizing workplace productivity. Atlan, which is a startup that has built SaaS data collaboration platform, has raised $16 million as part of its Series A funding round. The round was led by Insight Partners, along with Bob Muglia, former CEO of Snowflake, Bob Moore and Jake Stein, founders of Stitch, Auden Hoffman, who is the founder of SafeGraph and LiverAmp, and Akshay Kothari, who is the chief operating officer of Notion. Existing investors, Sequoia Capital, India's Search, and Waterbridge Ventures also participated in the round. Now, the idea on which Atlan is built is really interesting. The way most people in enterprises deal with data is really inefficient. Now, this mostly happens because the fundamental diversity of people who are involved in the company, right? Right from scientists to analysts, engineers, business users, they all have their own skill sets and their preferences for the tools that they use. Now, this makes collaboration between cross functional teams a big challenge as they struggle to find the right data at the right time. Now, this is just one of the various use cases that Atlan solves for. The startup was founded in 2018 as an internal project at Data for Good firm, Social Corps, and was incubated across 200 data projects, including India's national data platform Disha, which is also used, which has been used by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Now, I'm sure this would be a winning idea in internal hackathons, don't you think, Roshan? Solving for company-wide data cleaning.
Yeah, it's more complex than that, and kudos to the Atlant team. I mean, look at the kind of people that they have got on board. I mean, that's really amazing. I mean, to have people like Bob, who is part of Snowflake, right? I mean, is simply amazing. So what Atlan is doing is in essence is building a Facebook for data teams, right? As you rightly said, different people require different types of data in different forms, and they have different uses for it, right? Now, how do you create that single point access for all of these people to work together, collaborate, access all of these things, especially when the priorities may be so different, and things vary, right? So it's a very non-trivial problem to solve, and uh, I think only I mean, often we talk about founder product market fit, right? Not just product market fit. I think that is very key here, right? Because I don't know if anyone else other than Prakalpa and Varun could solve this problem, because they've been doing this for the last decade, I would say, right? So with social co-ops, and some of their work with the national data platform, for example, where they built a dashboard for ministers to access how their schemes are doing, so on and so forth. It's pretty amazing, right? And uh, uh, and they had a pretty good announcement also. I mean, it was a superb announcement, very nicely done. I should say, I mean, as a marketer, I felt like, it was very, very nicely done. Superb landing page, superb communication, and so on. So I spoke to Prakalpa a while back, and we're going to be putting out the episode this following week on building a culture for data, how she got started with Atlan, pivoting from social co-ops, and a bunch of things she's learned along the way in terms of building a global team of people and solving a really, really big challenge, being early in the market, and so on. I think that's going to be a fantastic episode. I highly recommend that people do check it out. And Prakalpa is a fantastic founder. So all the best to Prakalpa and the team. Yeah, looking forward to this.
Superb. All right, so I've been checking Sridhar Vembuser's Twitter feed, and recently they're posting, pictures of rainbows and talking about peacocks in his rural area. I think this really reminds us, like, how important it is to take a step back from your day-to-day work and just enjoy the small thrills in life, right?
Absolutely.
And what a wonderful picture he has posted. Look at the rainbow coming out from behind the hill.
Yeah, man.
Right?
Did you see
Eh,
the full rainbow in Bangalore?
Oh yeah,
No.
the corona, the rainbow around the sun, right?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't see it, but then I saw plenty of good photos of it. So
Oh
yeah.
yes. So yeah, so to all our listeners, please don't forget to take a break from your 9 to 5 hustle. And yeah, if you just look up, you'll see a rainbow in the sky sometime. But yeah, Roshan, so with that, we come to the end of this week's roundup. You did give some context on your conversation with Prakalpa, right? Whose episode we'll be putting out this week. Could you talk a bit more about your conversation with Murli, who is the founder of Ideas to IT
Yeah.
Inc.?
So one of the most important things I think we've figured in India is to pivot from services to products, and that has happened through SaaS, right? I mean, it's something we've spoken about, the convergence of plenty of things like cloud adoption, payment infrastructure, our ability to sell to a global audience, and so on and so forth. And Murli is very typical of this, right? So he runs a services company called Ideas to IT. It's about a 400, 500 member team based in the Valley and here in Chennai, right? And he's done this idea to product to company journey multiple times, right? So he spoke about Pipe Candy, which is one of his companies, and then Idea RX as well, right? Where he's done this very well. And these are two different businesses to run, services and products. And so I had a lot of questions in terms of the thinking that goes into running this. And we also spoke about hiring engineers, which seems to be like a such a difficult thing right now in this crazy market, right? And how do you enable these engineers and so on? So it was a great episode. a lot of good insights, and especially if you're interested in product building and company building and so on, it's a great primer to get things started, I would say.
Right. So with that, we come to the end of this week's roundup. Thank you everyone who has joined us live on YouTube and Twitter, and those listening to the roundup on your podcast platform. Do let us know how we are doing, and we would also love to hear your thoughts on these news items on Twitter and LinkedIn. Do reach out to us at Operator Startup on that's a Twitter handle, and on LinkedIn it is the Startup Operator. And please, I hope you're getting vaccinated. I hope your families are keeping safe. And yeah, we'll see you again next Sunday. Thanks, Roshan, for taking us through the news for the week.
Thanks, Kunjan. Thanks so much, everyone, for tuning in, and look forward to seeing you next week.